Okay, the weather's warming up, it's coming into springtime, and when that happens, there's one tactic that's really effective at this time of year. Today, we're going to show you exactly how to do it. Just keeps the swim ticking over nicely. Got a few fish, hopefully mooching around, ready for the next time. Oh, there we go. You can empty the pot as well, ready for the next time. It's always worth experimenting with the feed. On some days, feeding like this can be the wrong thing to do sometimes. That's a massive F1, that is. That's huge. So like I was saying, there's one tactic that comes into its own at this time of year, and that's fishing on the pole with meat. Meat in particular, as the weather's warming up, can be so effective. It can win loads of matches. The carp really switch onto it, and today I'm going to run you through exactly how to fish with it. Okay, so you join me here today at Moorlands Farm Fishery. Brilliant fishery, probably one of the oldest in the country. It's been around forever. I'm actually on a lake I've never even fished before, the Island Lake. As you can see, it's nicely been really landscaped. There's sort of new shoots and rushes shooting out, and it's looking really nice. And hopefully when I catch some of the fish that are in here, and I've been told there's a lot of fish in here, so hopefully we're in for a good day. So, although it's trying to warm up and the sun's starting to come out, it is sort of trying to come into springtime. Temperatures are slowly creeping up, or trying to, and meat tends to be one of those baits that come into their own just as the temperatures start to warm up. It's full of attraction, and in the spring, for whatever reason, whether it's the sort of fat and protein in it, the fish seem to home in on it just as the water sort of starts to warm up a bit, and they switch on to baits like meat. So, as I say, a new fishery today, and I think meat is going to be a safe bet. So that's what we're going to go with today. Keeping it really simple, all I'm going to target is the short pole and a long line a bit further out. Obviously that short pole line can be brilliant all year round really, especially on a venue you don't know. It's a real good place to start. The fish sort of get educated to bait being thrown in on that short line. It sort of creeps down the shelf, and they know that they can get fed at that sort of line, so it makes sense to have a little go there, a little roach top there. So I've opted to just sort of plumb up, slightly up the shelf a little bit, about 4 meters out. Just as on that sort of hard bottom, you find on a lot of fisheries you get a slope on the inside, and then it goes into that softer silt. So all I've done is plumbed up, found that softer bit of silt and gone up slightly up the slope, slightly shallower water and a harder bottom that's going to get less disturbed, and hopefully we're going to catch them nice and cleanly without the sort of line bites that you can get if you're fishing in that softer silt where it gets a bit mucky when the fish start feeding. So that harder bottom, ideal place to start, and we can swap a change if it's not right. And then on the longer line, I've opted to fish just in the open water, and I'm probably going to feed that slightly differently, but we'll come on to that in a bit, and we will move on to some rigs. So really simple, 2 rigs is all I've gone for. To begin with, that short pole line, I've got a 11 hollow. Again, I don't really know on the size of fish, but 11 hollow is normally a really good starting point. It's elastic, I really trust. You know, if I like a big fish, I can take my time, but for F1s and mixed fisheries, little carp, 11 hollow at this time of year is probably a really good starting point. But obviously we can change if we start catching bigger fish. So mainline choice, nice and durable, got 017 power line. And the float choice, worth mentioning, I've got 2 number 8 back shot because we've got a bit of a crosswind today, keeps changing. And float choice is a 4x12 F1 maggot, carbon stem float, nice and light. It's got 1.5mm bristle. Obviously I'm trying to use the lightest float I can get away with really. Again, that's because of sensitivity, and this time of year, you know, I'm not going to be mega positive with big heavy floats. I just want to be nice and sensitive and make sure I can see all those little indications. So to begin with, it's really simple. All I've got is a bulk, probably about 12 inch from the hook, 2 number 10 droppers and a 4 inch hook length. That's dead simple. I might alter that bulk throughout the session. Meat's a brilliant bait for sort of catching on the drop, so it might be worth spreading these shots out if I'm getting sort of bites just as it settles. But at the minute I'm fairly positive with a bulk, 2 droppers, nice and simple, but I can swap and change that. And then on a longer line,
I do apologise for interrupting the video, folks, but if you're enjoying this content, the likes of myself and all the other Press Innovations consultants, then please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification button, and that's going to tell you when we're putting out these fantastic videos. Hey!
I've actually got the same float again. It's slightly deeper out there, but I'm going to feed this slightly differently. So I've got the same elastic, same line, same float, everything, but on this one I've actually spread, I don't know if you can see that, spread all my shot out, probably about 4 inches apart, all number 10s, down to my hook length. I didn't mention the hook choice and line choice on that other rig. That was an 013 to a 14 GPM, so I can just hook the meat. 14, I can get away with quite a big hook because we're burying it in the piece of meat and the meat's quite lightweight, gets sucked in easy, and I find you can get away with a nice big hook like a 14. But on this rig, I've actually done it slightly differently. I've got a sort of rapid stop or quick stop on a hair with a size 18. And I just find when you're fishing long, sometimes quick stopping it like that on a hair rig, it stays on the hook a little bit better than just hooking it. So on my long line, I've opted for that. Obviously I'm going to be laying this rig in quite often, and I want that bait to stay on the hook. And the beauty of hair rigging it as well is I can get away with a small hook because that hook's totally exposed. So I've actually got an 18 GPM on there, and if we start bagging or catching a few bigger fish, obviously I can step that up to a 16 just by changing my hook length. Nice and simple, and hopefully that's going to be the way we're going to catch today. So we might as well start fishing. Like I said, that short line's a really good place to start on a lot of commercial fisheries, but meat's quite a highly attractive bait, and it fills the fish up quite easy, so you don't need to feed a lot. So all I'm going to do today, I'm literally going to hook one of these 6mm pieces of meat on. I haven't mentioned the bait actually. I've opted for 6mm meat. Obviously I've got the option of 6, 7, 8. But this time of year, I think this venue holds a lot of F1s in it as well. So I've opted for a 6mm, so nice size, you can catch silverfish, F1s, carp. All I'm going to do on this rig, I'm going to probably put 3 or 4 pieces of meat into my cab pot, and that's all I'm going to do to start the session. Literally going to ship out. I'm just slightly up the slope. All I'm going to do, empty the pot. I've got a marker on the far bank. I'm going to be really accurate. It's really important when you're fishing on a slope. So I'm going to lean forward slightly, drop them pieces of meat out, and then lay my rig straight over the back of the top of it. Nice and slowly, all in a line, being nice and accurate. Just laying it in nice and gently. Sometimes you can get a bite on just as it's dropping through. Obviously we're just starting the session today, so I'm not expecting bites straight away, but it would be nice if we can get one whilst I'm talking to you. And it's just a case of being really patient. To begin with, I'm not entirely sure how the session's going to go, but just by starting short, it can tell you a lot about how the day's going to go. Now, if we get bites short straight away, then it's going to tell me there's quite a few fish in the area, and I could spend a bit of time fishing short before we move on to the other lines, which is going to be my longer line. But hopefully, if we stay nice and patient, we're going to get a few bites. So I'm anchoring it in against that slope, them two back shot there, keeping the bait nice and still. As you can see, that float's dotted right down. There's probably about 3 mil, 2 mil that bristle showing. But I can see that float under the water as well. I can see what type of bite I'm getting. You tend to find with meat fishing, you get a nice sharp indication when you get a bite. I'm looking to ignore any sort of sideways movement or line bites. But this is how I tend to start a session, whether it's meat or pellets. It's nice and negative, a few pieces of meat in the pot. If I don't sort of get a bite in a few minutes, I might flick 1 or 2 pieces over the top, just to try and draw fish into the area. But hopefully it won't be too long before we get a bite. Oh, don't even notice that bite. That's a typical meat bite, really sharp, little dig. We're into our first fish. And all it took is sort of 3-4 pieces of meat in the pot. And we're into Moorlands Farm. Feels like an F1, might be a little carp. Oh, what we got here? Might be a little ghost F1, that one. Yeah. There we go. Nice little fish to catch. That one is a ghost F1. Lovely little fish. Right, so it didn't take long to catch that first fish. All I'm going to do now is repeat the process. We go another 4 pieces of meat in the pot. Keep it all nice and accurate. And I think that's really important when you're fishing on a slope, because you know, if I was to misjudge it and feed sort of 10 inches to the left or right, it might end up quite a long way away and rolling down the slope. And just by being nice as accurate as you can on a slope, it just helps you catch fish and keeps them in one place rather than spread out. That back shot's working really well, just to keep it nice and still, all pinned down. Tiny little indication, that one might be a silverfish this time. There we go. Fishery nets here today. This one's quite a big one, but hopefully that means we're going to catch some big ones. But meat, as you can see, brilliant bait for catching all sorts of species this time of year. And on the new venue, it's a bit of an indication of what you can get away with feeding sometimes. So I'm going to up the feed slightly, put a couple more cubes in this time. We're going for 6 cubes, just to see if we can get through to some bigger fish. Again, being nice and accurate, not loose feeding to begin with. I'm just keeping it in the pot. Sometimes the noise of that bait hitting the water can be detrimental and get the fish up in the water. And just by being nice and quiet with a pot, and keep all the fish on the bottom where I want them ready to catch, hopefully. So again, I'm probably going to stick with this line until we stop catching, but I have got the option of that longer line. And I said before, I'm going to feed that slightly different. A little lift bite then. Might have been a silverfish. Just reset the rig. So on that longer line, I feel like I'm going to maybe loose feed that line with a catapult. As I said, we're coming into springtime, and you often find that fish really respond to a bit of loose feed and that noise hitting the water, and it can really help to draw fish in. I'm just being a little bit careful on this line to begin with, just sort of catching what I can with the pot. I will try throwing a few cubes over the top, but on that longer line I feel like catapulting with a lighter rig just means that you can catch fish on the drop all through the layers, as well as fish on the bottom. So we'll stick with this line, see what we can catch, and then we'll have a play on the longer line. Oh, that was a nice positive bite. I think this time I'm going to start loose feeding a few cubes over the top. So I've hooked that fish, I've thrown 3 over the top. That way, when I go in next time, hopefully there's a few fish in the area mooching around, ready for me to catch another one. This one feels slightly bigger. Use a puller bung this time. Take it nice and steady until that fish gets close in. And with a bit of luck, we'll scoop him up. There we go. That's a bigger F1 this time. Lovely fish to catch this time of year. See if he'll let me hold him up. That black marking, it's like a koi. Step him back. Right, because we fed those few cubes over the top, hopefully we're sort of building a peg now, getting a few fish mooching in the area. Caught a few fish early, but now by loose feeding a few cubes over the top, we're going to start bagging. Hopefully I'm actually going to stick with the pot though, just to retain a bit of accuracy, because obviously that bait I've thrown is not going to be totally accurate on that slope. So hopefully just going to start catching faster and faster really, and until this line fizzles out, and we might have to go on that longer line. But meat's a great bait for this sort of close in line, catching loads of fish. Brilliant for a fishery like this. A little lift bite then. I was wondering if I laid it over a fish's back then. There we go, it's gone in now. Tend to find baits like meat work really well in the spring. I think because it's a softer bait, fish can take it in really easy, and obviously it sinks nice and slowly. Just gives that sort of more attraction. The fish follow it down to the bottom. And as we get into sort of, I don't know, April, May, tends to work really well. Same goes for sort of October for whatever reason. It must be the same sort of temperatures that we're at for whatever reason. Springtime and autumn time, meat works really well. Obviously in the summer months I might be looking to fish sort of hard pellets maybe. Work really well. And on a fishery like this you'd probably catch in the shallow water as it warms up a little bit, but as I said, the water's still quite cold, and I'm just sort of targeting that slightly deeper water at the bottom of the shelf. And today it's working, we're getting a few bites, some nice F1s, it's good to see. It's been a little while since I've had a bite, so all I'm going to do is throw another 2 cubes over the top. I was quite accurate there, but not always, which is why I've got the pot on as well. And as you can see then, as I've thrown that, you often find that you get a bite straight away for whatever reason. I think the noise just sort of provokes it, and they start feeding because they know more bait's on the way. There we go, another F1. Nice fish. So we're getting bites quite quickly now, which is encouraging. I've got the mother of all tangles.
A few moments later.
Alright, so we're catching really well now. I'm just throwing a few cubes, and I'm also keeping it nice and tight, putting 5 cubes in the pot, laying the rig really accurately over the top, and we're catching really well on this line. But if I was sort of struggling with a few line bites and struggling to catch on this line, but I knew the fish were there, I'd then probably try and plumb up in slightly shallower water. It's about 4 foot there today, but you often find that the fish want to feed in slightly shallower water sometimes, so it might be that they want to feed in 3.5 foot, 3 foot, you know, or maybe 2.5 foot in the edges almost. And sometimes plumbing up a new line in a specific depth can be really effective. We're quite fortunate today that we've got a nice gradual slope on this venue, and you can fish any depth that you want really. So it pays to sort of have a couple of rigs, and if you're struggling to catch on this line, maybe plumb up a new line in slightly shallow water, maybe slightly deeper water. Sometimes they prefer the feed on the softer bottom out further out. So it pays to have a little bit of experiment to see which line's best. But at the minute, this sort of 4 foot line slightly up the slope on that harder bottom is really effective. So I'm sticking with this line. So I'm going to catch a few more fish on this line, and then we'll have a little play on that longer line. See if we can mix it up a little bit. There we go. Lovely little dink on meat. Throw a few cubes over the top, and now we're catching really well. Just keeps the swim ticking over nicely. We've got a few fish hopefully mooching around ready for the next time. There's another great big F1. Lovely looking fish there at Moorlands. Immaculate looking fish, look at him. Love catching big F1s like that. Right, see if we can catch a few more. So although we're catching really well on this line, I'm actually going to start feeding that other line ready to go on it. So although we're catching really well here, and I don't really want to come off it, but for the sake of the video, we'll mix it up a little bit. I'm going to pick up my catapult. So catapult choice is quite important when you're fishing baits like the meat. They're a bit of a awkward shape and they can be hard to catapult. So I've opted for the pellet pult, which has got the flat base on it, which tends to help. And as I'm fishing this line, all I'm going to do, put two or three cubes in the pot and start priming that other line. Just sort of 2 or 3 bits at a time. You don't need to go mad with it. A little indication there. Oh, there's a few fish in my peg. So I'm just going to start priming that longer line, a few cubes at a time. I don't want to feed a volume of bait because I'm fishing on a soft bottom out there. I just want to create a nice spread out little area. It's nice and flat out there. Just a few cubes dropping through all the time, and it just gives me the option of catching on the drop or catching on the bottom like I am here. I really don't want to come off this line, it's really good. Just starting to get good. But we call it the last fish on this line, and we'll have a little play on that longer line, see what we can catch. This feels like a bigger fish actually. You'll tend to find the bigger fish quite often feed later on in the session, especially on this line, but it's great to catch a few fish on it straight away. And if it was a match situation, I'd definitely look to come back on this line and fish it later on in the session. Oh, definitely a bigger fish. 11 hollows working all right though. That's a massive F1, that is. That's huge. That's probably a £5 F1, that is. Let's see if I can hold him up. You tend to find when you catch bigger F1s like this, they're really the fussier ones. So if you're catching F1s of that size, you know you're sort of doing it half right. Right, let's put that one back and we'll have a little play on that longer line. So, like I said, I've just started catapulting a few cubes out there. I carry on doing that. So before we pick the rig up. It's a bit long, that one. 2 or 3 cubes over the top. Just get that bait falling nice and slowly through the water column. Hopefully there's going to be a few fish in the area ready and waiting. So, I said before, this has got a spread out shotting pattern, and it's got a quick stop on, just to help keep the bait on the hook when I'm laying the rig in without it coming off. So all I do, put the spike through the quick stop, I don't know if you can see that, and then push the spike through the piece of meat, pick it out like that, and then you're left with a nice herring piece of meat. All that hook's exposed, and you tend to find you hit the bites a lot easier with a hair rig. But obviously the benefit of hooking the meat is you can get away with a bigger hook, I find. But when you're fishing it like that, you tend to fish, well, I tend to hit more bites with a hair rig. I think it's harder for the fish to deal with, and we all know how effective a hair rig can be. So although I'm loose feeding on that line, I'm also going to fill the pot up as well. And with this pot, slightly differently than before, I've actually got a lid with a small hole on it. That just allows me to tilt the pot sort of 90 degrees and drop 1 or 2 cubes out at a time. I'm not emptying the pot at once as I might do on the shorter line. I'm just dripping it out, 1 or 2 cubes, same as I am with the loose feed, just to keep that bait dropping through, and it just gives me the option of again feeding nice and accurate, but with the benefits of the catapult, if you like. So I'm not afraid to fill the pot up sort of with a dozen cubes. Obviously I'm not going to feed that all in one go. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get a bite, but by filling the pot up like that, it gives me the option of staying out there but having multiple feeds, if you like. I can just sort of empty 1 or 2 cubes at a time, draw the fish into the area until we get a bite, but hopefully it's not going to take too long. So I'm going to flick the rig past, slowly lower it in. Just gives me the option of catching on the drop. As you can see, it's slowly dropping through. You'll see that float just cock slightly. There we go. And we're getting towards the bottom. Might have been a little indication there straight away. So all I do then, tilt the pot sort of 90 degrees, give the pole a gentle little tap, 2 or 3 cubes out. Oh, there we go. Can empty the pot as well, ready for the next time. See a nice little positive indication again on the meat. This one feels a smaller fish than the last one. Oh, it's a little carp, that one. Must be a new fish, that one. Fully scaled mirror. Look at him. Beautiful fish, that one. Pop him back. So again, I don't know if you noticed, when I hooked that fish, I emptied a bit of feed out of the pot ready for the next time. So when I ship out there next time, hopefully, like we were doing on the short line, there's going to be a few fish waiting for me. So herring and a piece of meat again, nice 6mm piece, nice quick and easy. Just untangle that. A few cubes in the pot, 6 or 7 cubes in there, and we're ready to go again. So I've chosen a sort of comfortable distance today. I'm only fishing about 10-11 metres, just to keep it nice and easy. Flip the rig out again, slowly let it drop through. I'm not going to feed yet, because obviously when we hooked that fish, I emptied a few pieces out of the pot. See if we can get a bite straight away. And if we do get a bite, I'll empty a few cubes out as we're playing the fish. Oh, a little indication there. I'm going to flip the rig out again, just past the feed and let it drop back in. You'll find fishing like this, strung out at this time of year, can work really effective. Although the water's quite coloured today, on a lot of venues it can be quite clear, and fishing meat on the drop can be really effective. Just gives you that visual aspect of the sort of slow fall of the meat, and the fish follow it down and can't resist it. They keep lifting and dropping as well, a few inches, let it drop back down. Sometimes you can get a bite like that too. Just keep working the rig. Also not going to be afraid to pick the catapult up, make a bit of noise. Obviously feeding with a pot's great, being nice and accurate, but sometimes that noise of the bait hitting the water can be really effective. So I've got 2 or 3 cubes in the pouch. Ping a few over the top, just to help draw fish into the peg. Doesn't need to be really accurate because we want to create a bit of an area. Obviously it's quite a soft bottom out there, so I don't want to feed all in one place, if you like. Sometimes they can dig the bottom out and be harder to catch. Just want to create a nice area that are not going to disturb too much. Also going to drop a couple more cubes out the pot, a few taps. And by feeding with a pot and with a catapult, you've got that noise of the catapult, but you've got the accuracy of the pot. So I'm going to empty the pot again because I've hooked the fish, ready for the next chuck. And it just means the swim's ticking over. Obviously I could catapult it, ready for the next time, but I've got that little bit of element of accuracy ready for the next go. And if it does come to that we're catching really fast, it might just be that feeding with a catapult's the way to go. Especially as it warms up a bit, you can often find that you can catch fish on the drop really effectively, and maybe even with a shallow rig, but it's probably a little bit wishful thinking today. Did actually have a frost this morning, but as you can see, this one feels like a really nice fish. Nice common carp this time. Another immaculate fish from Moorlands. This one, a bit of a character. This one's got really long fins on it. Look at him. Lovely little fish. So we go again. Another 6mm cube of meat. Sometimes you can find, well, sometimes it can be good to have sort of maybe a few bigger cubes of meat on your side tray. Likewise, putting 2 cubes on can be really effective sometimes when there's a lot of fish in a peg. Just means that they tend to pick out that bigger hook bait easier sometimes, so it's always worth having a few cubes, bigger cubes on your side tray, or like I said, trying 2 cubes on the hook. Gonna let that rig fall nice and slowly. Sometimes you can catch them on the drop like that. A little indication there just as it's dropping through. Float's dotted down nice and low. It's probably about 5mm showing there, so I can see all these little indications. Little line bite then. Didn't give that a proper strike because I wasn't convinced it was a bite. Just waiting for that sharp little tug, and you know that's a proper bite then. Another liner there. Just sort of slowly slid under. Empty a few more cubes, just 1 or 2 at a time. It's always worth experimenting with the feed. On some days, feeding like this, maybe when it warms up, can be the wrong thing to do. Sometimes you need to plummet all that bait in one go. Instead of that drip pot, it might be worth feeding slightly differently and making sure all that bait goes to the bottom in one go. But it's early on in the year, and drip feeding like this, or with a catapult, is really effective, as you can see. Just means you're never really overfeeding the peg, but you're always drawing fish into the peg. A little bit of noise, but there's never that volume of bait on the bottom. It just means that you catch fish that little bit longer, and you're a little bit more cautious to begin with. This one's pulling back a bit. Might be another carp. We had a carp on the last go, so this longer line is obviously picking out the bigger fish. Quite often the case actually, when you're fishing like a strung out rig, quite often you can catch these bigger fish. Now, when I used to fish venues like Larford and Viaduct, a strung out rig would always catch the bigger fish. So that one's a lovely little common. Makes a change from the F1s. There we go. Step him back. Okay, let's see if we can catch you one more fish. So again, herring in. Sit that quick stop in. Stick a few cubes in the pot so I can drip feed over the top. I think this time I'm going to pick the catapult straight up though. See if we can carry on making a bit of a noise. Luckily we've not foul hooked any today, so we can get away with loose feeding a few bits and bobs, as it seems, without foul hooking any. Obviously it gets into the summer months, we'll not have to think about how we're feeding, just to reduce the amount of line bites. And it might be that we need to feed a bit sort of positively, or sneak the bait in with the pot without making a noise. But this time of year, they seem to be responding to a bit of loose feed. And it's working really effectively. Again, I'm going to keep working the rig, lifting it out, dropping it back in. Sometimes you can get a bite just about now, just as that bait's dropping back down. Just sometimes it can grab their attention and you can get a bite like so. So hopefully you've picked up a few tips about meat fishing or early springtime fishing to help you catch a few more fish like this on fisheries like the Great Moorlands Farm. Ooh, that is a big F1, that one. Surprising how big some of these F1s are in here. It must be lovely old fish. Oh yes. That one is probably a great fish to finish on. I don't know how big that is, but that's a big F1. At least £5 I would have thought. Might let me hold him up to finish. There we go. See if he'll let me hold him up. There we go, look. Probably about £5 that fish. Incredible F1. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Preston YouTube channel for more fishing content. See you next time.